Just recently, I did something very unusual in that someone reached out to me and asked for help with regards to what they should do about their partner dying. The individual was very upset, and she was convinced that this was because of the COVID vaccine. Now, I always try and be objective when I am listening to stories. I understand the perspective, and after a number of interactions with just giving general guidance, I thought, you know what, I will capture her story because I think that it is very relevant to many other people. Now, as a clinician, I have to sometimes wonder whether or not our primary responsibility is as an advocate for patients, or is it an advocate for science or our profession? And it comes into question as to whether or not I should even talk to someone about these questions. For much of the medical and scientific community, they want to move beyond the pandemic. They want these questions to be put aside because for many people they're irrelevant. There is no evidence that there is harm. The problem is that a lot of people still believe that there is harm. So if you want to see that interview, you can click on the link in the description and you'll be able to see the full interview. I'd be happy to hear your thoughts there. But it raises an important issue with regards to whether we agree or not. If that is the perception of a large proportion of the public, it needs to be addressed. It can't be ignored. It can't be swept under the carpet. People are really hurting. They are grieving. And half of the problem is that the scientific industry will say you have to show conclusive evidence that this is the cause. But that's not how it works in clinical medicine. It's just about probabilities when we're doing death certificates. It's about the most likely probability. And what I did in that discussion, that interview, is I tried to take an objective and balanced view. I imagined myself not as who I am, but as someone else who didn't have any perspective on it, who was not quite necessarily pro, but kind of in the middle, being able to think and to try and be objective about the information that they were hearing. I'd encourage you to listen to it. I'd really be interested in people's thoughts. I'll play with you a small clip of this, just so that you can see what it's about. This is it here.
A male. Yep. Yep. Yep.
So yes, I understand. Yes. So I think I'm glad you've had a chance to talk about this. And I agree with you that there are many other people who are having similar concerns and who are very worried. And we do need histology. And this is the bit that we're missing, because at the moment, we can only speculate that it was this or it wasn't this. It's important to note, and this is why I've captured this conversation, because I know, as you said, there are a lot of people who are worried that this is what's happening to them or their loved ones. And the truth is that because we have such limited research, we are left only speculating.
I'm very disappointed. I am very disappointed with the autopsy, because I expected them to take samples of blood and saliva and you know, tissues and things. I just couldn't believe that they could call that an autopsy. To me, that's not an autopsy.
Yeah, well, it is. So you can feel her upset and anger at many of the things that she thought should have been done better, and she's probably right. Um, I can say quite honestly that I am disappointed with what I have seen through the pandemic and the approach that has been taken and the way that a lot of the medical and scientific community has sidelined these concerns and these statements as being irrelevant. And we are seeing it play out in real life. If there are any clinicians who are watching this, I will warn you, trust in doctors has dropped 30% since 2020. In 2020, doctors were heroes and nurses. Now, the public has lost trust and lost faith because they perceive that we did not advocate for them during the pandemic. These are very serious challenges, and we can only start to deal with them and address them by facing them honestly, listening to the concerns, empathizing with the issues, recognizing where there is fault, where there is mistake, and taking the opportunity to try and rebuild trust that has sadly been lost. As I said, I'd encourage you to watch that video and share your thoughts. And uh, what I'll do is, as usually on Friday, I do take a look at some of the comments and so on. This here, docs will say they just relied on standards of care and associations recommendations. They don't feel personally responsible. And I I can't disagree, an honest doubter, because it's what we call defensive medicine, where the priority becomes protecting yourself and the interest of your profession. And this is not just a medical thing. This happens across the board. The police will do it. Teachers will do it. Politicians do it all the time. But I think that what has happened is that there is a higher standard of responsibility that has been placed on the health services because of the work that is done, that it makes it harder for the public to accept that sometimes these things happen. Um, and just taking a look here, all three of my wife and children took 2 mRNA shots each. None of them received an actual vaccine because no COVID vax has yet been offered. Well, I know where he's coming from, and I think that I understand that point. Um, this person says, everyone I know, including the family that took vaccines, developed blood pressure and autonomic system disruptions. And what you will find in response to that, Shane, is that much of the medical profession would say, well, you don't know that it was directly because of the vaccines. It could have been just this is their presentation. But this is where big data comes in, because if you're seeing more than what you would expect, big data should be able to flag that and make sure that we are not missing things, because it can be very difficult anecdotally to be sure whether or not something is the case. Certainly, I have seen blood pressure dysregulation after COVID infection as well. And so that would not surprise me as well. Vanda says, as many of the actions at the government and Medicam associations made no sense. I was retired, but my colleagues were threatened about taking the vaccine. There were no ifs or buts. And true, Vanda, without a shadow of a doubt, there was a definite focus on that clinical community. And yes, it's harder for them to stand up for it when they themselves were pressured. It's not everybody, but for some people were pressured into having to have this done. It's very, very difficult for them to be able to do anything different. Yes, and I forgot here, Michael. I've had many conversations with doctors, nurses, etc., regarding the vaccine. They know something ain't right, but they will not say. Yes, and it, as I said, I take great risk by speaking about these things publicly. Many people don't like the fact that I speak about these things publicly. But I believe that certainly at this time, it's what we call the duty of candor, and it is a responsibility from all clinicians. And in case you come across somebody saying that, just remind them about the duty of candor, which requires us to be open and honest and transparent when we think mistakes have been made. And we have to tell the families and we have to inform them of that. So, just in case anyone was listening from a clinical point of view and you are thinking anything different, remember your responsibility to be open, honest, and transparent with patients and relatives, even when, especially when we may be at fault. Very important point to make. Yes, so as I remind you all, please take a look at the video in the link below on Substack. Please join me there as well. For those who do see these videos, they have been quite suppressed recently, but I appreciate those who are with me, and have a wonderful evening as we look forward to continuing to bring challenge to where we are today. Have a great evening.